For the fight night coming up this weekend, May 31st, between Erin Blanchfield and Maycee Barber, we got two bantamweights in the women's division who are in the top 5 fighting on the prelims. We got Ketlen Vieira taking on Maycee Barber, and I believe they're both slightly older, past their prime. Now they're both coming off of decent performances, but Ketlen Vieira did lose to Kayla Harrison. Still, she did show that she could hold her own, considering that Kayla Harrison is like 10 times bigger than everybody else in the division, and Vieira was still able to win the 3rd round. And if it were going to the 4th and 5th, she would have beaten Kayla Harrison, just unlucky she got mauled in the 1st round. Then we got Maycee Barber, who is a pretty decent finisher for women's MMA. She wins 30% of her fights by TKO, 30% by submission, and only 40% by decision, which is considered quite rare. Usually, you see women's fights with some people up to 80% decisions. For example, Ketlen Vieira's 60% of her fights are decisions, and her average fight time is 15 minutes and 21 seconds, which is kind of crazy because I don't think she's been in many 5-round fights, no more than one. Her average fight time is 9 minutes and 47 seconds. But I think that her win against Mayra Bueno Silva might be a little overrated because Mayra Bueno Silva has lost so many fights in a row. Now, she lost that fight, but the thing is, it wasn't even because of a fight, it was because of a doctor's stoppage at UFC 303, and Maycee Barber hasn't fought since then, so it's been quite a while for her. On top of that, Mayra Bueno Silva lost in the 125-pound division, which shows that she's not even really a bantamweight if she can cut down to 25, which means she's undersized for bantamweight. Which I guess shows that Kayason's best win is kind of overrated. Also, to add to that, she is also a decent grappler, but her takedown accuracy is abysmal. Compare that to Ketlen Vieira, who's a judo and jiu-jitsu black belt. I think she's gonna have a tough time taking her to the ground, landing the ground and pound like she did against Silva. So, for that reason, my pick for this fight is going to be Ketlen Vieira by decision. Zachary Reese is returning to the octagon after his knockout loss versus Azamat Bakajev, and I'm gonna excuse him for that, because Azamat has shown that he's an excellent fighter, and he will be ranked at middleweight sometime, and probably inside the top 10, because he made his debut against Zachary Reese, and he looked so good. The ground and pound was nasty. I don't know why Zachary Reese was playing the guard game so much in that fight, but they gave him a step down in competition with the fight against Duskto. And I'll be honest, I don't think this guy's very good. Looking at the stats, he looks like a brawler, 6 feet 1 inches from Montenegro. Really, he's from Serbia, if we're being real, with that last name. Looking at the stats, he is 12-5. That's barely even a good record compared to someone like Azamat or even Zachary Reese, who's 8-2. It's not a bad record. Zachary Reese is also really big for a middleweight. He's 6 feet 4 inches, has very long legs, and a 77-inch reach, and he wins most of his fights by TKO. He's a finisher. His average fight time inside the octagon is 4 minutes and 17 seconds. He averages 0.7 knockdowns. That just shows he's an absolute beast. When he gets in the octagon, he either gets finished or he gets a finish, which is one of the most exciting types of fights. You want to see him there. I think the last fight didn't show how good he was, just because of how good Azamat is. And this guy that he's fighting this time, Duskto Tudovic, is not very good. He's a brawler. He absorbs 4.8 strikes per minute, like significant ones, and his defense is 46%, so he's gonna get cracked. And you can't take too many cracking shots from Zachary Reese. And on top of that, Zachary Reese also gets lots of takedowns, and Duskto's takedown defense is piss poor. So I can see Zachary Reese winning this fight by submission or TKO. But my pick for this fight is going to be for Zachary Reese to finish by TKO, but I'm very sure that he could also get a submission in this fight. Dustin Jacoby is returning to the octagon after his comeback win and one of the best KOs I've seen in the last couple of years against Vitor Petrino. His KO reminds me a lot of the KO that Kamaru Usman had against Jorge Masvidal a couple of years ago. It was an absolute stinger to the jaw that put Vitor Petrino to sleep, and it was shocking to see, because there was only, like, 1 minute left in the fight, and also Vitor Petrino was winning the exchanges until then. So it was shocking that Dustin Jacoby even pulled that out, considering he looked really bad versus Dominic Reyes and looked chinny. But the guy is fighting this week, Bruno Lopez, who is 14-1, but I don't think he's that close to Dustin Jacoby's striking. The only thing I fear now is that since Dustin Jacoby is 37 years old, I think he might be a little chinny also, considering he came off that knockout loss to Dominic Reyes. He has recovered, but still, it's going to be interesting to see how he fights. Is he going to be timid like he did last time, even though he got the TKO? We'll see. But my prediction for this fight is going to be Dustin Jacoby to win by TKO. He was a former Glory kickboxer. He fought guys like Alex Pereira and other high-quality Glory kickboxers. So even though it's been a while since he's fought there, he still has elite stand-up skills for light heavyweight. So I think he's going to win this fight by TKO. In the co-main event for this UFC fight night, we got Mateusz Gamrot taking on Ludovic Klein. This fight makes no sense matchmaking-wise because Mateusz Gamrot, I believe, is still ranked number 7 or number 8 in the lightweight division. Meanwhile, Ludovic Klein is not even ranked. I don't understand this fight from a matchmaking standpoint, but they do have the odds pretty close because Klein has looked good in his last couple of fights. But everybody knows that the lightweight division has always been stacked, and I think that because of that, you shouldn't get a shot at number 7 or 8 right away unless you have a big name from Bellator or something. So that doesn't make sense to me a little bit. Klein should fight someone like Benoit Saint-Denis or Joel Alvarez, people who are at the edge of the rankings, like just at the top of the top 14 or 15, right? I get it because Gamrot's coming off a loss to Dan Hooker, and that fight, in my opinion, was a robbery. I thought Gamrot did enough in rounds 1 and 2 to win the fight. I know it was a split decision, and people say that Dan Hooker won just because they like people that stand and bang over people that are grappling. But Gamrot also dropped Dan Hooker in round 1 pretty badly. He had him on a knee, he was wobbled. Even though Dan Hooker did fight back later in the fight and looked like a crazy man, I still think Gamrot won that fight. My prediction for that fight originally was for Gamrot to win because he was a higher level fighter. But I think the UFC hates Gamrot, right? Because he's somewhat of a boring fighter. I guess he's a grappler and doesn't do that much damage. He doesn't submit anybody. He's mostly known for decisions. There were also rumors going around that he was going to fight Arman Tsarukyan, but Arman turned that fight down because it didn't make sense. And I agree with that statement, it wouldn't have made sense. So now we have Gamrot taking on Mr. Highlight, and I think Gamrot is going to win this fight by decision. He's a high-quality grappler. He was the one who trained with Dustin Poirier before his fight with Islam, so he's very good at scrambling. I don't think Ludovic Klein is the type of grappler that will be able to stop Gamrot just because Gamrot lands 5.25 takedowns per 15 minutes, which is a lot. So I think my final prediction, as I said before, is Gamrot to win this fight by decision. I'm recording this prediction video the night before the fight and well after the weigh-ins took place. During the weigh-in, Maycee Barber ended up missing weight by half a pound as she weighed in at 126.5 pounds while Erin Blanchfield weighed in at 125 and looked super clean as usual when she did it. The real concerning point is what Maycee Barber looked like when she was on the scale. You can tell she was drained because the fat out of her face was sucked out. And that is usually a sign that someone is sucking the last ounces out of their body. My original prediction before this weight cut situation was that Erin Blanchfield would win the fight, so I think I'm going to stick with it. Maycee Barber has been inactive between this fight and her last fight. Her last fight was at UFC 299 against Katlyn Chookagian, which has already been like 14 months ago. Both of these girls are gritty fighters and excel the most in a dirty fight where technical ability is out of the equation and they can get their hands on each other. But Erin Blanchfield has a grappling advantage and could steal some of the rounds by getting on top of Barber and controlling her. Although Maycee Barber is one of the hottest fighters in the UFC, I'll enjoy seeing her get handled by Erin Blanchfield.